Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee here, and you are tuning in to episode number 230. This week, we are kicking off the first of a series of discussions that I am calling Honest Conversations. I don't know about you, but one of my favorite parts of the work that we get to do is tap into the authenticity of women who are slaying the same dragons as we are as female entrepreneurs. So much of what we see on TikTok and Instagram can feel quite performative. And let's be honest, most of it is. So I want to take some time to really peel back the exterior layers of women who I respect tremendously in this industry and bring some of the honest conversations that we have behind closed doors, well, to you, to the real world. So this week, I'm kicking off this series with a raw and honest conversation with Jessica Christy, PA and CEO of Beauty Culture Medspa and Be Cultured Wellness. Jessica and I chat in this episode about the layers of identity that have to be shed throughout the growth journey of a female leader. We talk about the frustrations with perceptions around business building and gaps that so many women are missing as they are scrambling to find the perfect 10-step process. In this episode, Jessica references our 6-week business growth certification program, Confidence to Scale. And later, I am so thrilled to announce that we are going to be relaunching this program after I had what I would call multiple interventions among women who have graduated from this 6-week immersive and transformational experience, like saying, Kaylee, you have to run this program again. So like Jessica, so many women have come to us to empower their brand and elevate their profits. And I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what's included in this program before we kick off. But I wanted to make sure you were in the loop on how to apply for this program at klcconsultants.com/scale. Okay, leader, please enjoy this episode with my dear friend, client, and colleague, the beautiful and brilliant Jessica Christy. Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go.
Welcome to our podcast. We're both going to be putting this on our channels. I'm Jessica Christy, and I'm here with Kaylee Lindholm. Kaylee.
Hi, guys and gals.
Okay, I think the best way to start this is just reminding everyone how we met, what our relationship is. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that from the lens of how did you meet me and how did we start working together and what were your initial insights about our new relationship?
When we first met?
Yeah.
You like the pink fairy dress?
Yeah, but it was green. It was like a pistachio green.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we met. I was giving a workshop at a conference and Jess was in the room. You were in the room, quiet, cute little, tiny as a button, blonde, of course. And we were pinging around the room talking about leadership. And then a question was asked about how do you know if it's a good employee or something like that? Or how do you know who to hire? Or how do you, I don't know, maybe you remember the question better than me. And then you spoke up and said, well, actually, what I do, and I have this huge company and all these employees, and I heavily invest in personal development for my team. And you give them books to read. And I believe if they grow as people, then the business is going to grow. And my first impression when you started talking was like, who is this girl? And then when I heard what you said and your take on leadership, I was like immediately enamored. So yeah, so I think I probably misjudged you when we first met. For sure.
Which we've talked about that a lot. Like,
yeah.
I think you're like one of the most misunderstood people.
Yes.
I know.
I think for sure you are. And then we started working together. You came into Confidence to Scale, which was our 6-week business growth certification program where we take business owners through the process of kind of the emotional aspects of scaling and understanding the difference between growth and scale and the foundational pieces that you need to know about what to expect in terms of developing a bulletproof mindset as a CEO, setting boundaries, and then standing for something in the marketplace and stuff like that. And you were about halfway through the program. I think you finished the whole program like early and then asked me like, can I just move ahead, like skip ahead into the academy? And then came into the academy and we worked together both within the academy and one-on-one for a long year plus after that. And then now our relationship has evolved in a lot of ways. And I think we've developed a friendship.
Yes.
Because we're both like weird people that love nothing more than to talk about business, personal development, and like weird things.
Yes.
Like that.
I honestly remember that day like it was yesterday. And it actually, are you going to Aesthetic Next this year?
Yeah, next week.
Yeah. So that was probably what, I guess maybe 2 years ago. No, because it's 3 years ago, which gosh, time flies. But I remember sitting in that room. I had just had this mass exodus of my business, leading it in a way with good intention, but definitely without strategy. And I was so hungry for that. And I think I had told you too, I don't even really know how I signed up for your workshop because it wasn't free. It was something that I had to pay a little bit extra for. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was actually in the middle of a lunch and I was like, I need to go to this because I paid for it. And I believe I walked in late and so rude. But thank God I did because it made me sit there and question things that I didn't have infrastructure for. And now the very thing that I lead with, which is core values, and the very thing that drives my entire life philosophy in my home and in my business, there's like, it bleeds through. There's no discrete line, a discerning line between the two. That was the first time that I really sat there and pondered what my core values were. And I already had owned a business and was leading other people. And I think that that's such a common place for people to realize, what am I doing? I don't deserve to be leading other people, whether they admit it or not out loud. And how do I really quickly, I think that's the premise of your boot camp and your confidence to scale is like, we need to quickly get someone to understand what kind of trajectory we need you to be on. And I remember sitting in my very first meeting with you. I was in my treatment room. I made the time and space, even though I was still seeing patients 5 days a week. And I put my little laptop on something to try to prop this up and talk to you. And I remember telling you, I just have a lot of vulnerabilities in my business and I don't even know where to start. And these people left and I don't know why really yet. And digging into all of that, wow, what a journey it put me on of massive self-discovery and massive brand shaping. And it's something that has now led me to the place where I get to look at what success looks like for me and I get to choose rather than trying to stay afloat.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's important too, like, even though, you had a business that was successful in many ways already, redefining and going back to the drawing board to look at like we shift change so much in our lives, right? Like our business 5 years ago is not the same business as it was. So it's sometimes just a matter of being intentional about taking inventory. Am I actually where I want to be? And do I still want the same things that I did want when I started this business? And where do we want to take it from here?
Yes. That for me resonates big time because I'm constantly asking myself what success looks like. And when I am participating in anything and when it feels like there's some friction associated with it, I feel so much more confidence to say, okay, what is this about? What is it telling me? And I feel like I can trust myself and maybe know that maybe this isn't the right place for me. So I've chosen not to go to a lot of national meetings. I used to be a big conference goer. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm not anymore, but I've kind of shifted the people that I'm surrounding myself with right now. And I'm moving a little bit more into the wellness space in terms of what I want to learn. I think also I've gotten rid of some key opinion leader agreements that I felt like maybe I just had because they knew my name and my brand and they wanted to hitch their trailer to my train.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the confidence to do that. And also, I think a lot of the accolades that we get as top injectors or top business owners in the country, it's hard to take those identities off, whether it's a trainer for certain companies or whatever it may be. I think that this year has shown me true growth and that I'm comfortable saying, I don't know if this is serving me anymore. And I don't know if it's aligned with the brand that and the success that I'm now choosing and what that looks like.
So, oh my gosh, but that's so hard to do. It's especially hard in an industry where I remember like when I was a sales rep, it's almost like a cult in the sense that everything was about like getting to the national meeting and being the top rep and getting like your name and lights on the stage and walking up and getting your trophy. And like, you felt like you just won. Like that was like me winning a national championship in college. Like you hit the pinnacle of success in life because of that. Right.
Yeah.
Almost didn't matter like the bonuses that you were getting, of course there's great money to be made, but like it was the ego of like, look at me. And I look back at now and these big companies, the same company and all the other companies, right, have their big sales meetings. And I still have colleagues sometimes at some of these companies too, but I look at how they've created this system where people are so like proud of themselves and they should be for working hard. But I mean, like where they tell you that the roadmap to success is, they direct you and guide you to that. And I look at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never go back to those days anymore where I was schlepping around, like dragging lasers in and out, doing demos, cold calling on practices, getting doors slammed in my face, like all of that to then be able to like walk on stage and be like, look at what I did. I mean, I wouldn't give up anything for that. Now I don't have to go sit at the trade shows. And I think that that's the same system that I see happening in our industry too, where if you think about, and I remember you and I having this conversation and you wrestling with that conflict of, I definitely I love the mentorship. I love the ability to go and train and teach these techniques that I've honed in and learned, and also, it's taking me away from my practice and my time building my business and my team and investing that same amount of energy and mentorship and training into the people who could grow this fruitful ecosystem for me.
Yeah.
And how you kind of felt like, well, but isn't the next step to like be a trainer and to be like the trainer and to like train, And the same week, I'm having a conversation with someone else who is like, "Ooh, I'm so excited. I finally got asked to be a trainer. But I went to the training and I couldn't talk about anything. I had to do it completely different than I actually do in my practice. And like, I feel like I'm lying." Mm-hmm. And I'm listening to these conversations and I'm like, there's so much, it's industry and there's politics and everything. And it's hard to know, it's hard to distinguish as somebody who's just trying to do your best and learn how to navigate through this whole growth journey on like what's legit and what's not legit. And this vision of like what success should be, right? Like I should, the next step is I should have a training academy. The next step is I should, and we forget that the best businesses in the world did things completely sharp right turn or sharp left turn out of the box of that system. And so that conflict that I think we all deal with, and the higher up we get in our businesses, the more, I guess, like the more concentrated that pain feels because there's less and like the road is, it's just that much more desolate, right?
Yeah. And I think too, like all of that is bringing you up to the question, do I want to, first of all, be an entrepreneur? Because that evolutionary journey that you go on is undoubtedly going to throw the craziest twists and turns into the road that you honestly can't predict. And I think that what makes a really good entrepreneur is taking those uncertainties, taking those challenges, and really being able to use them as a growth opportunity and show up and do that work. And if someone wants it all planned out and they're joining every business mentoring group and they're going to every single training and every single dinner, but they're not actually implementing and using those, like they're trying to put band-aids and like make everything comfortable and avoid the hard conflict and the hard conversations. If they're not willing to really shake stuff up, like your clients do, then what is the point? First of all, I don't think you really want to be an entrepreneur. I think you're self-employed and you have maybe a high paying job, but you're showing up and you're working double for those hours. But there's some serious pivotal moments that really show us that it's time to evolve. And when I started my business, I didn't mean for it to be what it is. I just wanted to have something that I was proud of. Honestly, I wanted to be self-employed. I didn't really know that I was going to be an entrepreneur, but through that journey, I chose to put that hat on. And now I have a responsibility with that hat. And I wouldn't change the agreements that I've had. I wouldn't change who I've been a trainer for. I wouldn't change the people that I hired that have tried to take me down. And in fact, I've gotten to a place where I'm so grateful for them because they built my brand to the point that it needed to be at. The roads there was a fork in the road, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be something that I really lean into, and I take who I was as Jessica 1.0 and I decide consciously to align with people like you and other things that I've done to become 2.0 and 3.0. And something that you talk about a lot is I am growing into and deciding to be the person that beauty culture requires me to be that day.
Yes.
And that's the commitment that I think people don't know how to move into. And that's the hard work that we've done together.
It is the the actual hard work, because we know how to work hard. We know how to grit and grind and hustle and juggle a million things and all of that. And we lie to ourselves and tell ourselves okay, doing more of that, pushing myself through that challenge, that's where the hard work is. That's not true. And I just have to put this out there. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And there are way too many, you think why PE is all coming in here and everybody is they're buying everybody up. Way too many people started a business who should not be owning a business and don't understand what it actually takes to build and scale a company. And we have injectors that decide, they open their door, they have some sort of level of success, start to build up some cash flow. They see the amount of money in the bank that they've never seen before. And suddenly they're an expert and they have an academy and they're becoming a mentor and coaching someone else. And they've literally not built a real company. And so that's fine. There's a place for everybody, but you have to understand that in order to really, people ask me all the time, how do I be like Jessica? How do I be like Shelby? How do I build well, I can tell you the answer, but you're not going to be, probably most of you are not willing to do the work. And I see this again and again and again, because let's talk about where that real work is.
Yeah.
What does it actually take to build and scale a company up past the 5 million and 10 million and beyond?
Yeah. And not to mention, I know how Shelby shows up as a leader and how I show up as a leader, and albeit slightly different styles, it's a common theme that you're no longer really the technician in your business, and you have to sacrifice that revenue that you've generated and get really creative with how you transition patients to other leaders on your team in order to really show up and do this stuff. And I think that talk about taking a medical provider that spent a lot of time and sacrifice a lot of things to get a medical degree, and then tell them that they're no longer going to be doing technically the thing that they went to school all this time for. It's a really unique shift of emotion and of, an attachment to something that you were doing before. And I think one of the biggest hangups that I see in a lot of these people who are just constantly asking, what are you doing? Your success looks good. Let me copy that. I think that it's really clinging to mindsets of others, clinging to other people's ideas of what success looks like. It's the same reason that I haven't yet expanded locations. I don't know if that's what success looks like to me right now. And I am comfortable as an entrepreneur now, because you have to always be comfortable in the unknown. It's not right now for me, but it likely will be in the future. But if it's not, I'm okay with that. And I know that my growth and my scale will be in a different realm. And that's great. Knowing that is great. And I think that there's different, strategies that you hold space for that help us embrace redefining leadership roles and those hard questions that are asked. And I think that the whole point of Confidence to Scale, something that I learned while I was in that program was, okay, this isn't just you don't get to just say, okay, I want to talk to you one-on-one now. It's an evolution of you also getting to know your clients and how you are very selective with who you decide to spend your time with, because you get to do that. You have a really big name behind you now in this space. And, putting one foot in front of the other and learning the basics before, you're learning how to crawl before you walk. And I think that those strategies that you have really, really been elemental in my success and helping me learn how to define it on my own.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like someone asking you, like, what, give me the like secret sauce of like how you've been successful. And you were like, you were in this room, all these women are just like sitting there with notes. And you were like, well, I journal a lot.
It's right here. Always. I know. They were like,
no, but actually.
Yeah. They were like, no, what do you really do? And I'm like, nope, that is it. And I love the thought of those free days, those focus days, and really just like the less I work, the more success I experience. And I say the less I work, the less I'm trying to show up for tasks on my calendar that someone else is putting on my calendar. And something else I've realized recently, which I don't know if this is, I think it's important to this conversation, is the concept of saying no. We all know it. But something that I've realized in this industry is all the people that we're saying no to, I've gotten to the point where I can not say yes right away. Like that was always my knee-jerk reaction. Oh my gosh, someone thinks I'm important enough to be on this ad board or do this. Yes. And then I finally realized after being begrudgingly showing up and dragging my feet all the way there and being like, why did I say yes? I'm not happy here. This isn't where my time is best spent. I would be like, okay, I'm going to think first. So then I would think, I got to the next stage. Okay, now I'm going to think about it. And then I would decide, does this align with my 3 core things that I'm working on right now, my priorities? No? Okay. So I'd say, no, thank you. And then these sneaky people, they will ask you in a different way and spin it just ever so slightly to make it maybe a little bit more attractive. And then that's where I'm stuck right now, is my awareness of that, is then I would say yes still. And so now I'm in this new place of being like, oh, they just asked again. And I'm just going to politely again remind them that my answer was no. And even just those little things, like every yes has to be defended by 1,000 no's, right? And you have to be very clear about what your vision and your mission is. And so if you don't have those like basic things that everything sprouts from that you teach, your vision, mission, values, I don't really know how anyone is functioning as a business.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say to somebody who's like, well, I get you're there, Jess, but like, I'm trying to build my reputation and my brand visibility?
Well, I think that it's literally going back to that vision and that mission. If you know what your vision and your mission is, then you reverse engineer from there. What are the 3 priorities that I have right now, even if it's just for a quarter? Like I think I'll back up by saying this. I think that one of the best questions that you can ask, and it's how I start my one-on-ones with my team, where do you need to be in 1 year to feel personally and professionally fulfilled? From there, you can discern maybe these 3 things that you want to focus on. And then if those things truly are becoming a trainer, because that fulfills your need to hone in on your brand image of being a thought leader, then that's okay if that's what success looks like to you. Success for me. And then if you change your mind in a year, that's okay too. You're allowed to change your mind. But I think that when someone's trying to get their name out there, it's spending time on your own, really thinking about what success looks like to you, and then strategically moving the ball that way. Because if you show up and you lead other people and you're investing in other people over your own career, then you are going to have this army of people behind you that will not let you fail. And they're going to be, like, talk about leads. They're going to be these leads behind you that are speaking your culture, singing your praise.
Referring to your team members.
Yeah, your team members. Yes. So let me back up. If this person is saying, well, I need to get my name out there and I need to create my brand, the best thing that you can do is develop the people on your team, because you then have this army of people that is fully bought into your vision. And by the way, not because you financially incentivize them. I think that that's a big misnomer. And it's something that I fell into, a trap that I thought, if I pay people the most and I just don't tell them what to do, then who would ever leave me? And that those toxic people that I had working for me that I was paying the most and I couldn't tell them what to do, those were the people that were driving all the other people in my business away that actually believed in what I wanted the vision to be. So if you are only thinking about financial incentives for these people on your team, that is definitely another thing that you want to look at. And that's something that you asked me. You said, when I was struggling with having to redefine some comp plans and really streamline things to make it just fair across the board and to be really clear about what we're measuring, you said, do you think that people only show up for your business because of what you pay them. And I was like, oh yeah, that's such a good point. And if they do, is that the kind of person that you want on your team? And the answer to that is clearly no. I've learned so much from being a leader. And I think that I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but I have my dog right now, Frankie, who's still somewhat of a puppy in service dog training. And it's an extensive puppy training. And one of the biggest things that he is learning is impulse control and like stopping in the moment to be more thoughtful and really make good decisions. And I've thought a lot about my own impulse control in, like my behaviors and like retrenching in old behaviors because that's how you started your business, or that's the place that you go back to in uncertainty or chaos. And I think that so much of the work that we've done is consciously undoing those behaviors. And that's truly, I think, the impulse control is what was pivotal in my growth and what was able to make me go to those 2.0, 3.0 versions of myself.
Well, it's the stuff between the lines. And that's why I think like if it was all about your data, right? And you just crunched numbers and you looked at your dashboard and you saw where you had weaknesses and you knew where you needed to like cut and pivot and double up and all of that, right? Like any tactic in business. I get asked all the time, do you have an SOP for this? Do you have a script for this? Do you have a 10-step plan for this? Sure. I have anything you could want.
Actually, you do. I was that person asking. I was like, do you have an SOP? Like, how do I start a podcast? You're like, here's an entire Google Drive, but like, listen, let me bring you back in.
Yeah, I've got it all. Like, it's all there. I'm obnoxiously like, it's there for you. But this week we have a client who has been developing, like bringing this employee, like great employee, patients love her. And then they start to have like value-based communication conflict. And this employee, she gets to the point where she's like, there can only be one chief. Like, this is just not going to work. And she had to let this employee go.
Yeah, that's hard.
Well, patients are coming in like, where's Susie? In this awkward, right? And she's like, oh, it was not the right fit. Really? Oh. And now imagine you sitting on the other side of that and the thoughts that are going through your mind and the meaning that you're putting behind the fact that this great employee that everybody loved and that you took the time in to develop and that you was a representation of your brand and now is a reflection of the fact that you couldn't make it work and keep them around and what you're telling to yourself, right? So there's no phone script that's going, or any script for that matter, that is going to help you navigate through those emotional, that worthiness and the validation that you feel as a leader and as a CEO. You have to just go through that. And the conversation of, well, what's the problem with it? Well, it's an uncomfortable pause. What are we making that pause mean? Well, that I failed in that situation, right? And these are real things that we're going back home and sitting in our bathtub, replaying in our mind again and again and again, and taking up valuable, creative, visionary, business building space in our mind because we're dealing with the emotions of who we are because of the way that we have made decisions and moved in our business. If you don't go through that real work of actually letting go of the employee, of having the difficult conversation, of understanding, to your point, the journaling, like being really honest with yourself about what you're making that mean and how you make it feel, this is where most people stagnate because they don't want to feel that uncomfortableness. And then they don't move forward. They don't hire someone else. It's easier just to do it myself. And I'm going to go back to those old systems like you're talking about, instead of using this as now a stepping stone to transform into the woman who is now capable of having difficult conversations and standing up for what I believe my business and I am worthy of. That nobody is teaching that in a spreadsheet, and nobody can give you that in a 10-step plan, an SOP, or a script.
No.
And the real, honest, dirty work of leadership. Hey, ambitious aesthetic injector. Are you ready to elevate your business to new heights? Great injectors like you are in high demand, but amidst the growth, the challenge is real. Patients want to see you, but how do you scale when they won't leave your side? How do you create a system that allows you to clone your expertise and maintain the quality they expect in your business? Well, introduce the Confidence to Scale program, a transformative 6-week certification designed specifically for in-demand aesthetic and wellness providers like you This isn't just another course. It's your blueprint to creating a purpose-driven business that not only fills your soul, but elevates your profits. So join us starting the week of September 26th. And by Halloween, you will master the CTS framework, which includes week 1, unlock the success keys to your confidence to scale framework. Week 2, unearth your $1 million confidence. Week 3, set boss step boundaries that empower you. Week 4, develop your proprietary method that stands out. Week 5, market your unique disruptive philosophy. And week 6, learn how to clone yourself and scale your systems for maximum impact. Plus, gain exclusive access to 5 group coaching calls live with fellow CTS colleagues and our expert team, plus 2 one-on-one private coaching sessions with our strategic growth advisors. We'll be running 2 cohorts, AM and PM, and we'll have 10 spots only per group. So this will sell out very quickly, Goddess. Stop waiting for opportunity to come knocking. Take the leap and secure your spot and confidence to scale today. Transform your passion into scalable success and become the kind of leader who is capable of redefining and realizing her greatest vision. I'll see you there.
I think that this is such a good reminder because I think so many of us have imposter syndrome. You have like full on podcasts about this, like meeting, like slide decks on imposter syndrome because it's so relevant and so real in our industry, but also just in leadership in general. And I think that most people have to understand that, like, yes, there are those rando people that are just natural born leaders, but most great leaders do not begin as great leaders. And even like the ones that are born to, like, they're just an irrelevant concept. Most exceptional leaders grow into great leaders because they're trying to be worthy of the people that they lead, or at least that's what they should be doing. And if you want people to expand their capabilities, then you have to show up and expand your own. And so I look back at my leadership style and I think about, like maybe I was temperamental or reactive or immature, maybe intolerant of where people were coming from. And it was, like maybe more rigid. But I think that anyone who would confuse me, like Jessica 4 years ago, with the Jessica now, they don't know and they're no longer part of that growth. I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier before we pushed record. It's like, there are things that I'm doing now in an automated way to live my life so that I can open up the wondrous vision of what I have for my business. And back to what you just said about like how people are so obsessed with the SOPs or the 10-step plan or whatever, I was too. Like I was that person that was every Monday, I couldn't wait for your podcast to come out. And this is before we started working together. I would have my journal, the exact same one that I still use. I love these, the Full Focus Planner. I don't get paid to say that, but I just do. And I would have my little notes section on the side, and you would have tangible things. And of course you have that because people want that and it helps them start to see themselves in connection with you. And I would write them down. I would pause and go back and write them down. And I was so attached to those steps, but truly, like I learned big concepts. I learned that culture doesn't just support a strategy, it is the strategy. And I learned how to hire for values and for someone's temperament, not just high performing smarts or experience. And I learned how to decide, do I need to delegate this myself? Or do I need to delegate or do I need to do it myself? And I learned, a lot of the reading that I do now, they bring up in leadership so many generals and like people in military. And it's like, I learned how to hold my unit leaders accountable for keeping the culture and holding that frontline experience and how to make really wise decisions that are free of impulse and to take back control when things are going wrong and take ownership of that and really confront those kind of threats that can happen in your business, like what your client is experiencing, and how to really ask for mentors and how to cultivate people that are going to help stimulate you intellectually and emotionally and know how to handle those things in the future.
Absolutely. Well, to that point first, I literally was like, this is why she's plugged into something like a program like this, and to put me aside, just have a room of women that can help her navigate through that in real time, right? When you go through that kind of stuff. But back to growing as a leader, and I've watched you grow, from my perspective. One thing you talked about, maybe, some of the flaws that you think you had. I think one of the ways I've watched you grow the most is the release of attachment to outcomes and more focus on the process. So let me explain. So I remember, for example, going back to the comp plans, we talked a lot about there was this sort of belief that we pay people really well, they won't ever leave. And guess what? We paid them really well and they got really greedy. I mean, you had one employee in a certain role that was making more than I ever did in corporate, running a whole team. It was an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
And not an injector, by the way. Right. And so you went through that experience, learned from that. And then I watched you start to really button up the way that you protected and became the ambassador of your brand. And you talk about the military analogies. And I like to talk a lot about Nick Saban, who ran Alabama football program. And he brought in the best talent. And there was also a very high level of expectation. And think of yourself, right? I was an athlete. You're a PA, for goodness sake. You went through, think of what the level of intensity of discipline and focus and commitment and work you had to put in. What if you had a professor that was it's okay, don't worry about it, right? Would you rather have that, or would you rather have somebody that brought you in and was listen, you got this wrong, this or whatever, this piece of the puzzle, you're not grasping. And I need to help you learn, help you understand, let's talk through this. Would you rather have that professor? Or would you rather have the professor that was don't worry about it. We'll just go, we'll just give you the credit for that or whatever, right? Same thing for me as an athlete. And I think this is Nick Saban bringing in a type. You're not going to roll out and be the superstar of this program. You're going to fall in line with the way that we do things around here. And you know that if you make that team and you're a part of this culture, the expectations of you are high, but we're going to pour into you and you are going to grow. And that is a subtle shift I've seen in you as a leader, going from I'm so lucky to have you, I'm going to pay you a lot of money, and rah, rah, we're all going to be here, to this is a fucking badass experience that you get to have here at my company. And I'm going to hold you accountable. And I'm going to push you hard, and I'm going to challenge you. And guess what? You're going to be a superstar because of it. And that takes so much practice and intention and focus, and one step in front of the other, going through those experiences day in and day out to get to that point where you can not have that ego attachment to. People ask me all the time, how do I transition out of being the provider and turn into that CEO? This is what it takes, of putting the one foot in front of the other, of doing that hard, dirty, undercover work about who we are in relationship to our business and our own worthiness, in terms of how we interact with it. And so I just want to give you kudos, because it's just been really inspiring. And also I think in life, you've adopted this a lot. I see this just in general with you, where you're it's okay. I'm going to say no to that. I'm releasing it and letting it go. And I'm happy for that. And I'm not making it my problem. I'm not making it my success. I'm not making I'm focused right here on me. And that will be that. And it's just such this clean, light, I don't know, just elegant way about you of leading the path that you're on.
Thank you. Yeah. I think a lot about now where I am, and that calmness, that calm energy that comes from truly embracing that I don't know what tomorrow brings. But I think if you are doing meaningful work and you actually have a vision and a mission that you're on that you really love, and you're working with people that you love, I mean, you've really hit the lottery. And if you want to scale your culture, because it's really not about scaling your business. If you take that same culture into any other business,
a good point.
I was thinking about that this morning. I was reading this morning and thinking, man, the lady, Xerox was about to go under, and they hired I think they promoted the CEO and this woman to be CEO of the company. And she didn't focus on okay, these are the strategies we need to put into place. She focused on the culture and the core values, and the journey from a company just going from I was doing really well when I was in this bad place. It wasn't my company was going under, but in order to move it to one that endures all of the hardships with ease and with that calm energy, that is investing in the pipeline of all the right leaders that are underneath you. And it's that detaching from what's my career all about to how am I showing up for the soul of my business, like you talk about so often, and how am I showing up for these other people that are leading? Because again, like when you stop worrying about the spotlight coming onto you and you're investing in those people, they are going to expand your brand way more quickly than you ever could. And so I just think that those have been major takeaways for me, that it constantly goes back to the people, and those CEOs that are focused on the people are the ones that are really going to succeed in the end.
Yeah. And why do you think like this formula is so it's proven to work? Why do you think it's so hard for business owners to adopt?
I think that there is fear in releasing the control, because the reality is most of us are very, very controlling of our setting, of ourselves, how we live our lives, our relationships. And when you start to see that nervous energy emerge, that is fear that you're losing control. And really, if you go way back to the beginning and you put people in charge that you don't feel like you need to control, then you have courage in who you have on your team. And, really, I guess courage isn't really the absence of fear, but it's the ability for everyone to work within that situation and in that practice and be able to move through your mission and know everyone knows what they're showing up for. They know that they're in a place that they want to be in. They're functioning in their unique abilities. And if you have that, you don't need to control people. And therefore you can let go and let all the great things happen. But I think that the biggest reason is control. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. And it's the identity. It's what we talked about before, because all this takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we know, like it's such the cliche, what got you here won't get you there. And we all know how to, when I show up and, I am the primary breadwinner in my business. And when I show up and I'm productive, the business makes money. And that's the only way we, at a very surface flatline level, know to evaluate our success. And so we are scared to peel back ourselves from that relationship in our business, to take the time to invest in the unknown, essentially, because you're taking great risk with any guaranteed return of ROI by taking the time to hire for core values. How much freaking longer does that take than call a recruiter? Here's the 10 things I need them to have. Make sure they're not a complete screw up and don't have a criminal history or whatever. And then we hire them and we'll see if it works, right? The difference between that and then taking our own time to invest into somebody else and the potential that they could leave or it could not work out. It is back to that courage. Like it's just the faith in making that transition to believing that the value that we bring as a leader into building the ecosystem through people is ultimately way more fruitful than just what I am able to accomplish and the impact that I make as a service provider. And the same thing for me, right? And as a coach is building the business and the company. So it's a completely different, it's a lot of work that goes into that one thing.
Well, also, I just have to say, it was hard to strip the identity of me being the best injector and people wanting to see me and me getting amazing outcomes and being really attached to those. But I wanted greatness so bad. And I wanted to know what that looked like, to have a business where people would look at me as an exemplary leader and to be someone that could impart that kind of wisdom that I always wanted. I wanted that so badly that I did take a $1.5 million revenue hit when I decided to implement all of these systems. And I'm happy to say that now I'm on the other side of that J curve, and the money always follows, but that cannot be your biggest motivator. And I will say this too, because something that was, while you were talking, it came to mind. I think that so many of the people that you work with, they get to a certain level of success. And I've kind of been wrestling with this recently. I will share that you start to think, oh my gosh, now I've taken it here, and you get uncomfortable again. And you're like, the greatness of what this company is building, like, do I need to hire a real CEO? And I think that a lot of women start to feel that, or like, who, not how, like, who else do I need to bring in here to like help me run my business? And I think it's important to point out that many of the great companies in our history have been continued to be built by founding entrepreneurs. And that only happens when you're willing to continue to increase the version of yourself.
Yeah. And I also like, just to reemphasize to the point that I'm just a big fan of like creative organizational building. Like, I just don't think, I learned like, here's your org chart in business school, and this and and then you hire this and then you have these. And there's certainly, I don't want to discount that there's certain functions that have to happen in every business. So let's put that there. Right.
Right.
But I also think that what's so cool about what we do as a founder of building a business, like, hey, listen, if you want to go get venture capital and you want to expand to 40 locations and that's your path, that's totally cool too. Like, that's great. But if you want to build something, I know for me, like, I want to build something that I get to grow with, that is mine, that is self-funded, maybe I change my mind over time, but like that I get to have that creative influence in, and it's my piece of art and my canvas. And then I get to make impact through developing and cultivating other people within my company. Like, one of my main goals has always been, I want to be the company that the best people want to work for. Mm-hmm. And like, I want that, to me, is just never, ever leaves my mind. And so I think to myself on a daily basis, if I'm a great employee, like, who do I want to work for? Who do I want to work under? Who do I want to lead me in my professional and personal career? Because I think that the point of everything is not just to grow and make things bigger and bigger and bigger, but like to make it more meaningful for you in your life. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, isn't it at the end of the day? Like, so let's not lose sight of that. Like, I think it's okay also to say like, hey, let's do it different. And I actually find very often women at your level and like, who have built a business so that at that inflection point again, right, where it's at a tipping point of like, okay, back to this place now, like to continue to scale. Like, I'm at, okay, we're about maxed at what I can do here. Mm-hmm. Does it have to be opening another location, or can I expand the brand other ways? Our friend Blair, started her skincare line, and like so I think there's other ways too that you can express your creativity in your business, and you can put your like tentacles out into the world with your brand. That doesn't have to just look like this cookie cutter, build another med spa, like open another location. And I would love to normalize that. Yes. I worked with somebody, like, I remember she was opening her business and she's like, I just don't understand the front desk. Like, I don't love, like, come and check in, like this whole, get your clipboard, like sit on the chair, this sort of like this experience. So she's like, I'm going to do no front desk. In fact, I don't even like regular chairs. So she put in these like hanging swings from the ceiling that people can come and just sit in. And then someone comes and greets them. Like, here's a cup of coffee, and like, we'll, and handle paperwork late, like have like come in and be in our lobby and like enjoy yourself. And I think I love this, just a little example of like women, when we get to that point where we're like, I've run out of inspiration because the model of what I'm seeing is just more of the same and I can't find inspiration anywhere. That's when it's time to like not just hire another CEO, but like, yeah, you could certainly hire somebody to manage that operation. But if you have more creative juice left in you and you want to explore and expand like what you're doing, I think it's totally reasonable to bring in team and people that can help you realize and recognize the manifestation of something that maybe doesn't even exist before, And so I think like allowing yourself the creative agency to build your organization in a way that works for you, that maybe isn't the model that you're seeing everywhere else.
100%. That is, I think, a fear too of female entrepreneurs, and I'm sure more, but that's what we think we spend a lot of our time thinking about. Like when they do reach those points of like, I just don't feel inspired, what do you tell them to do? Like, how do you
go vacation?
Yeah.
No, honestly, like we've all been there. And like, if I even say like
wait, but are you comfortable when you get in that spot now? Because I feel like I get comfortable being like, okay, I'm bored. Like, where do I need to go to reignite this? I feel like you also are pretty comfortable with saying like, I need to re-inspire myself.
Yeah. So the old me would like do some launch a new product, buy something out, like do this, rebrand, whatever. Like I'm bored, I need inspiration. The new me goes back to reorient around my mission and my core values. And honestly, I go inside. Like I try to really not ideate out of boredom, but I instead build the business out of the needs that my customers have. So an example is like voice of impact. And again, like building that through recognizing talents in, a team member that we had that were like completely underutilized. Like we didn't even like, oh my gosh, we uncovering gold, and marrying that experience and knowledge and expertise that Krista has as an example, having been on stages and as an actress and model, and then seeing we have all these clients that are wanting to build their thought leadership on stage, like build that. So like bringing in things and kind of finding creative experiences within the infrastructure of the business that we already have versus just trying to like go think of something else.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think sometimes we talked about entrepreneurial boredom before because we like to not be bored, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I also think something that we haven't talked about that I think is a superpower of yours is that like, we don't talk enough about self-care. And I think it's like a kitschy term, but like honest to God, like your wellness of yourself as a human being, as a leader, because many reasons you're going to want to quit and it's going to suck. And you're going to have those hard days and we all cry on the floor once every now and again, right? We talk about this.
Yep.
But imagine if you are also like sleep deprived, overworked, overwhelmed, exhausted, drained, unhealthy, unfit, and you have nothing. How do you handle those moments? It's not, okay, I'm going to get back up and go. It's this lasts a week or this lasts a month, or it becomes a bad year. And it continues to become this domino impact instead of, okay, I'm just going to care for myself. And when I feel uninspired, turn introspective on like intrinsic development, I guess, in a way. And I think that's something that you've somewhat begun to master. Yes. And look at how it's turned into a whole business adventure for you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And empowering other women to say, like even stay-at-home moms, like they need that time to like reinvent themselves. And when you get into these habits, like it's very habitual. Like I take my bath with all of my little medicinal things. Like I put magnesium flakes in there, sometimes baking soda, sometimes essential oils, learning about those, how they're assisting me, my time to like pick up a book and read it, and loving the fact that my pages get kind of watermarked. And like, I don't know, there's just certain things that are so palpably self-caring to me that I don't give up and that I demand for myself. And that can only trickle into everything. It can only trickle into the space that you are demanding for yourself in all facets of your life.
Yeah, but think about this too, because I'm asked so often, like, how do you motivate someone to do XYZ? And the answer to me is always like, be a role model for them. Like show them like what motivates you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm really like being inspired by somebody, being empowered by somebody, seeing like knowing that there's something better and more fruitful for me at the end of this hard time, seeing somebody who can go through struggle and emerge stronger through that experience. That's your gift as a leader, is to be able to be that kind of role model for the people that you surround yourself with and that you employ so that they can show up. Don't you want your team members to like not be hanging around eating Twinkies all day, but taking care of themselves too?
Yes. Yes. 100%. They deserve that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I am really grateful for these kind of conversations, and also just for the fact that we can reflect on where we've both been as female business owners, and that you really do create this linking of arms and this whole other kind of mindset that really does become addictive, because when you are around people who don't think similarly to this, it's really uninteresting for me. And again, it's like we talked about, certain circles that we end up being in, or you start to really, really be clear about what inspires you and where you want to spend the bulk amount of your time. We all obviously have situations that we have to be in that are less than thought-provoking. But when you're choosing how to spend your time, it is really refreshing to know that there are women that are so supportive of other alpha females and that are building them up. And so I'm just so grateful for our continued friendship beyond what we've done together as business
same. I remember a mentor of mine used to tell me, game knows game. Mm-hmm. And I think about that a lot when I see somebody who's just I don't know, there's just a synergy that you have when you think, you have those kind of like-minded, productive thoughts about becoming a better human being, And so I don't know if anyone's listening to this and I need to be, have more of those conversations and experiences, let us know, because I think it's a gift. I have found it to be a gift to be able to tap into these kinds of thought-provoking moments. Yeah, for sure. Well, and also someone who kicks your butt a little bit too. You thought about this, right? Yeah. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. I mean, those one-on-one meetings where we would show up, I would show up too. And I knew that you'll get a look in your eye, you will, Kaylee, that I know that a hard question is coming, but I started to really look forward to embracing those because those are the thought-provoking and life-changing questions.
Yeah, for sure. And where's my SOP?
Right. And don't forget, you're for sure walking away with 3 PDFs of SOPs and slide decks on how to implement them.
Oh my gosh.
Well, obviously in my show notes, I will have ways to connect with you and your team for people that are just I think that this is what I need in my life.
Sounds good. I love it. Thanks, Jess. Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling. And part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working to cross the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.